Let's look at two more practice problems for working with lists and strings. And these problems are also helping us reinforce defining our own functions. Okay, so this is writing lists and strings 3 or 2, depending on your perspective. And I'm going to include the author information. All right, and so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a simple main that's not going to print anything. And then I'm going to call it. And so now I have the basics bare bone program set up. And so now I'm ready to think about my problems over here. So first I'm going to look at problem number 1, which says it asks me to write a function. So I'm going to define a function called average evens. And remember, if the directions give you a specific name for a function or parameters or a variable, make sure you use it. Okay, that takes a list of numbers as parameters, adds all the even numbers together, and returns their average using a list. And it's the even numbers this time. And again, before you look at the solution, remember to tackle these problems on yourself, because this is how you'll practice and prepare for solving the next problem I give you. It's not about solving the problem in front of you, it's about learning the process of solving the problem so that you can solve the next problem later. Pause the video if you have to take a stab at it on your own. Okay, so we are going to average the even numbers out. Okay, so we've got a list. The tricky bit with this list is that some of the numbers will be even and some will be odd. So when I take my average, I can't just divide by the length of the list anymore. So I'm going to create two variables, sum and num, and I'm going to return sum divided by num, which isn't actually going to work right now. So, because remember, dividing by 0 is one of the things we can't do. It gives us a runtime error. So in this case, for my function stub, I'm going to simply return 0 to make my life easier, but then I've commented out the actual computation I'm going to be returning. Okay, so, and in fact, I may want to think about a way to handle that. Because really, it could happen at any time that I'm given a list that has no even numbers. Okay, so let's handle this. So we'll say average equals 0. If num does not equal 0, in this case it would be greater than 0, return sum divided by num. Otherwise, I'll return 0. Actually, I don't need the average variable. I created it, but I don't need it. Let's be efficient here. And so this way, I'm doing exactly what I should do, and it works even for this stub case. So in fact, the process of testing and creating a basic function stub just helped me eliminate a possible error in my code by handling the case where num is 0. Okay, so now let's work on our working call. So if you've been watching the other videos, I've been starting off with a working function call here where I'm printing average even, so I know what function it is that I'm calling. And I'm going to call it on some list, which I have to make. I don't have to call it a list. I could call it nums. Remember, your variable name doesn't have to be the same name as the parameter. So nums is going to equal a list of numbers. And so to start, I'm just going to use the list that's right here. Voila. Okay. And then what I actually want this to output, what I expect it to output, is this is going to test average evens, is this should output 0. That's what it says here on the test case. Okay, so I expect this to fail, Let's go see. So let's run. Good. Average evens gives me 0. Oops, which is actually true. So maybe this wasn't the best example to test on, because even though it doesn't work, it still passes the test case. Okay, well, let's try and actually implement this properly and see if it also correctly outputs 0. Okay, so I need to calculate the sum and the num. In fact, these are things we've done before. These are code patterns that we've been following already to calculate the sum of a set of numbers that the user inputs, or counting the number of something. And both of these are repetitive tasks that require a loop. So for I in list. Now the key is that I only want to count these items if they're even. How do I determine if a number is even? Well, I try to divide it by 2. If I divide a number by 2, does it have, if it's even, does it have any remainder? No, it doesn't have a remainder. So my test for if a number is even or odd, or if it's a multiple of 3, etc., is to take modulus, the number I want to figure it out. So in this case, even and odd, use mod 2. And if the remainder is 0, means the number is even. And if the number is even, then I want to add the number to my sum, and I need to count the number of even numbers I've seen so that I can appropriately calculate the average. So in the first case, I'm adding I, the variable that I'm getting from the list. In the second case, I'm adding 1. So I'm just increasing the value of number by 1. Okay, let's try this again. Ta-da! It worked, and I can tell that it worked because my average is now 0.0, a float. So I have floating point division, and now I have a floating point number. So this actually did work.